This is JMD Mateus, and you're listening to Into the Night, a Moon Knight podcast.
Yes, welcome back, Looney listeners. You are listening to Into the Night, a Moon Knight podcast. This is episode 108, and I am your High Priest of Khonshu, Ray. With me for this episode, we have a very special guest, Josh
Geronimo
Johnson. Josh, welcome.
Hey man, how's it going?
Yeah, good. It's great to have you back. It's great to have your dulcet tones on the show. You're obviously no stranger. Josh has been on hosting the show on Isla Ra, and most recently, Josh, you've been partaking in our serial.
Oh yeah, that's been pretty fun to do.
Yes, and I just want to make mention to the Loonies out there as well. Fear not, for those who may be wondering where it is, it has been a while, but I have collated episodes 4 and 5. I'm just putting them together, so they should be released very soon, of which Josh is partaking in episode 5, so you'll get to see how Josh and Dustin fare in a Bosco Verde. But anyway, all that aside, Josh, it's been a while since we've chatted. What's been doing comics-wise? Have you been quite busy catching up, or have you been reading a lot of old stuff?
I've been reading a lot of old stuff. I pretty much cut down my pull list. I'm only collecting 4 titles anymore.
Okay.
And so I've just been sticking to the older stuff.
What's on your pull list?
I just have the what do I have? I have Thor,
cool,
Captain America, Daredevil, and Amazing Spider-Man. So that's the only thing I'm collecting anymore. I kind of cut everything else out. It's $4 an issue.
Yeah.
At least here in the States, it's for something that I can read in 5 minutes and not even really enjoy. Like some of the other titles that I had, I'm like, it's not worth me. I'd rather go buy 4 bins out of the dollar than from like the 70s, 80s, 90s instead.
Yeah,
that takes me half an hour to read.
Yeah, that's it, isn't it? Don't you get so you have that kind of like radar with you too, like because I've recently culled myself, and you read all the titles that you've got on your list, and there are some of them which you really enjoy, like the Daredevil. I'm assuming you're enjoying it. You've kept with it. Chip Zdarsky is very good.
Yeah.
But there's some other titles that you read that they're on your list, and you're kind of thinking, yeah, this is kind of just, run of the mill. And they're the ones that I guess you inevitably kind of strike off the list, right?
Yeah, pretty much. I was like, for example, the ones I cut, the big ones I cut off were Avengers, Iron Man, and Fantastic Four.
Oh, Fantastic Four, yeah. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, I think that one. It's not that I wasn't enjoying it. It's just money wise, I think I just need to stick to like 4.
Yep.
But like Avengers and Iron Man, I was like, after the War of the Realms tie-ins, I'm like, all right, I'm kind of done with this.
Yeah.
So
yeah, right.
So yeah,
it's Avengers I cut as well. That was with a heavy heart because it was doing well. I mean, like I'm a big fan of Jason Aaron, and he was really coming into his own. To me, actually, a War of the Realms kind of. I don't know, because it was so vast. It was really actually a bit overwhelming, I found. So...
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was, because when I first started, because I was really excited for it, I'm like, I'm going to try to get, like, every tie-in that I can. Obviously, I'm
That's a big
I'm
ask.
recently new to, like, Marvel.
Yeah.
So, like, this is, like, the first event that I'm really kind of been on board for.
Yeah.
So, I'm like, I'm going to try to get everything. And, like, the first 2 weeks I did... and like got like all like the tie-in issues, and like the little spin-off like one-off things, and then when it came to like the how they release the Strike Force like one-shots where like they divide into teams. I'm like, oh, that's gonna be cool. So I picked up the first one, and they also came out with issue 3 of War of the Realms. And basically the Strike Force issue was basically just them just planning on what they're gonna do. But you didn't see it because it took place in issue 3. It's like, so I just bought that issue And it was just them talking about what they were going to do, and that kind of put me off it, and I didn't pick up any other issues after that. I mean, I read the War of the Realms itself was really good. I enjoyed that, but I just cut off all the tie-ins. I'm like, nah, this isn't... Except the ones that were on my pull list already.
Yeah, it's a bit of a fine balance, isn't it? Because, to be honest, it is fun to actually... And I, recommend it to any early or young kind of comic book readers out there, is to pick an event and to, go for it. Like, try to follow everything in it. There are some events which are quite doable, others with War of the Realms, Josh, as well. It was quite expensive. I think to cover everything, to get everything, would cost hundreds and hundreds of dollars. But it is fun actually to follow an event and to actually get the crossovers and tie-ins. So to young listeners out there, I'd recommend to pick an event, because Marvel will always have an event. So you can't do it for all of them, but pick one that you probably like and see if you can kind of follow it with all the titles, because it is, despite what you say, Josh, at the end it is quite satisfying to know all the ins and outs of everything rather than just the core book. But when it comes down to what you say, and they just basically rehash stuff, and you have to fork out another $4, that's pretty bad. Yeah, it's pretty much a waste. But look, having said that though, I wanted to just get into... Well, look, Loonies, we're going to cover everything. Sorry, I haven't done the formalities or anything. We're going to have all our usual segments. So, obviously, Josh and I, we're just starting off a little idle chat. Josh is on board here. He is our resident expert with a lot of classic runs and all to do with Moon Knight. So, Josh has been here before. He knows the drill. And tonight we're looking at a trade arc review. So, it is a waxing gibbous in the sky, if you have a little look up there. And so we are asked by Khonshu to do a trade arc review, and we're doing West Coast Avengers Volume 2, issues 25 to 30. So this is a nice 6-issue slab, which involves Moon Knight. Without spoiling anything, Josh, because we're going to get into it, an enjoyable read for yourself?
Oh, yeah, I did enjoy it. Like I said before we started, I think it's like a 4-issue arc that's mashed between 2 standalone issues. So the first issue won't really tie much into the arc, and the last one don't really tie much into the arc. Yeah,
true. If anything, it kind of breaks it up, I guess. So that's okay. But yeah, absolutely right. The 4 middle issues are pretty much very well tied together. Anyway, we'll get into that, Loonies. Before that, we've got a few other segments which shouldn't last too long, I'd imagine, because news again is quite lean. Josh, we're talking comics. One of the things I do like to ask is, over the past week, what would you recommend? Like, out of all the things that you've read, what are a couple of standouts for you?
Let's see. Well, the things that I've sort of been reading lately, like 2 things. I've been reading some of the mid-90s Thor, which is pretty good. It's getting into that era where everything becomes 90s-ified. Like, Thor has this really weird costume where it's like a tank top sort of, but he has these huge ass shoulder pads. It's like, this is you can definitely tell we're hitting the 90s, but it actually does a neat little retcon when it comes to like Donald Blake,
right?
So they take I'll just quickly run through it. But so if you've read Journey into Mystery 83, the first appearance of Thor, you just this random Dr. Donald Blake with a limp, he just walking through Norway, walks into a cave, finds this stick and slams it and becomes Thor. Well, here when I'm reading, they sort of retcon that to the point where at first you thought that Thor or Donald Blake was just the Thor in human form, sort of, and when he finds the hammer again, he's able to become Thor, but then he can switch back and forth between the two. Okay. Well, here they change it to the point where Donald Blake was a real guy, and Odin had basically stuck Thor's spirit to young Don Blake until eventually and then when it was Thor needed to come back to Asgard, that's when Don Blake was like whisked away to Norway, and that's when he found it. So and then Thor took his place, as real Don Blake was stuck in that cave for like 30 years.
Wow! Wow!
It's actually a really neat retcon.
Jeez! And yeah! Wow! That's pretty good. I wonder if do they still? Is it Donald Blake? Who is it these days? Is he still around, or I've not gotten into touch with Thor. I don't know. Does he have an alter ego anymore? No.
No, I think nowadays he's just
Thor.
He's just Thor, and that's it. Which I prefer that, to be honest.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I mean, you have enough secret identities and stuff. Wasn't there like Eric Madison? He was in the 90s, wasn't he? He was a different Thor. He kind of had the Thor with the modern speak. I remember that in the Avengers.
Yeah, he was Thunderstrike.
Oh, he was Thunderstrike as well. I was about to ask about Thunderstrike as well.
Or he was the embodiment of Thor for a while. Yeah. And then he sort of took over, and then when Thor came back, then he became Thunderstrike.
Oh, okay. Right. I have no idea about the origin of Thunderstrike. Yeah, I just remember Eric Madison. He was the bearded Thor with the helmet with the visor, like and he spoke, like anyone else in the 90s, rather than the old school, old English. And it was a bit of a point of difference as well, I thought. To me, very, very 90s, but yeah, okay, all right, and something else that you've been reading more recently?
I've actually started reading. It's War Stories by Garth Ennis. Go ahead.
I'd say he's very much into military and war stories. So this sounds like a summation of all his,
Yeah, I just saw it recommended. I'm in a couple like war comic groups on Facebook, and I saw somebody recommend it. I was like, oh, let me check it out, and I'm really enjoying it.
Okay.
And this is a bit of a scoop, you could say. Mm-hmm. So I mentioned before on here a couple of times that I've been wanting to start my own podcast. Mm-hmm. And but I'm just trying to find an idea that hasn't been done 1,000 times already.
Yeah.
And because I know, like, the first time I was on here, I was like, oh, I'd like to do one where it's like going over like maybe Bronze Age characters and going over their origins. Uh-huh. But I'm like, I bet if I look that up, there's 10,000 of them. so I want to try to do something just like a little different. Mm-hmm. And I was kicking around in ideas, and I took a bit of inspiration, and I guess this can be a bit of a shout out, but I've been on here how many times in almost every episode. Somewhere I mentioned the Nam, which is one of my favorite comic arcs, like the Vietnam Marvel series. Yeah. And because that was one of my original ideas, and I was like, let me make sure that no one's done this. But actually, it turns out there actually is a Nam podcast. I'll give him a bit of a shout out. It's called In Country. Yeah. And that one's really good. He's actually he's wrapping it up in the next couple months because he's just doing the whole run. And
so what's he going to do afterwards?
Oh no, he's once he reaches 100 episodes, he's done.
Oh, okay.
Because there's 84 issues, then he's doing some other stuff, like he's went over some like Vietnam War movies and like novels and stuff like that.
Yeah, right.
But so I took a bit of inspiration of like, because I enjoy like history and stuff, and like war comics and stuff. So think, you know what? I should do one that's solely just on just any kind of war comic in general.
Yeah.
Because they've been around for a while. Like, they've been around since the 40s and 50s. There's so many different titles, and not just from like Marvel and DC. Mm-hmm. You have like minor publishers like Charlton, if you know who they are.
No.
Charlton was they were a comic company from like the 40s to like the 70s or 80s.
Right.
But they actually were bought out by DC, and DC actually incorporated a couple of their characters into the DC universe. Probably the most prominent one is Blue Beetle.
Really? Okay. He's a big name.
Yep.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, but yeah. So they've had a bunch. What are some other ones? There's like a lot of ones from like the 50s and stuff. Like, obviously they're not like they like have been shut down since like the 60s or 70s. Mm-hmm. But I've read a couple of them, and they're pretty good. So that's why I joined some of those comic groups, just to sort of kind of get a feel. So yeah, so I'm thinking about. I mean, this is me, so I have the idea. Oh yeah, this will be a good idea for a podcast. I probably won't go through with it just because it's me, but I'm sort of kind of kicking some ideas around.
Yeah, for sure.
Just to do just a general war comic podcast, because there's none that I could find except for the one I listened to.
And that's the best thing, isn't it? Like you talk about something that you love to talk about. So before you know it, like you fill the half an hour or whatever, and you've got yourself an episode right there. So it's not a task at all. But yeah, look, if you've got any questions about podcasting and just the behind the scenes and putting it together and publishing it, more than happy to give some advice and make some recommendations for you.
Yeah, because that's like the biggest thing. It's like I could probably come up with the content. It's just the producing part that would just kick my ass, because I am so technology inept. It's it's embarrassing.
Oh, maybe we should have a bit of a talk off air, Josh, and some options of how you'd like it produced. I don't know. We'll see how we go.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Just also wanted to say as well, listeners, I pitched something to Josh a while ago. Remember, Josh, it was about showcasing characters from the Marvel Universe, like, an episode spotlighting each. The
Marvel Handbook.
Yeah, the Marvel Handbook. And just recently I found, so another little shout out to Alphabet Flight. It's a Marvel podcast, just two guys, and they go from A to Z or A to Z, all the characters in the Marvel Handbook. Short, sharp episodes, so they range from 15 minutes to maybe 25 minutes for a character. But it's a nice little resource. If you ever want to learn more about a particular character, just scroll through their list of podcasts. But anyway, so I had this idea for Josh, and unfortunately the idea has been taken, Josh, so we can't do that.
Yeah.
Can't do that. But let's have a talk afterwards about maybe getting your show off the ground. It sounds really interesting, and I'll definitely back it. I know you've got the chops for podcasting, Josh, so that's cool. So War Stories, what does it entail? Like, is it a particular protagonist, or are they a collection of stories?
So there's two different there's two different series. Like the first couple series came out through Vertigo.
Mm-hmm.
I've read the first two of that. Those are just they're like big size one shots. They're like 60 pages or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just one story for each one. Like the first one was from the perspective of a German tank crew towards the last days of the war, World War II in Europe, and the second one was about what's known as the D-Day Dodgers. If you know your history, obviously D-Day was the invasion of France at Normandy, but at the time the Allies were still in Italy, because they had invaded Italy the year before and working their way up, and there was this British group, and they're getting they're fighting there, and then back in England you have the big shot politicians in Parliament, and one of them is saying how all those guys that are still fighting in Italy are cowards because they missed out on D-Day and stuff. So it's them sort of dealing with that mental stuff eating at them while also fighting. So and there's a couple more in that series I'm reading, but then and then later on, I guess in maybe 10 years later, he did it with a different publishing company, and that was, I forget what it's called, is it Avatar or something? And that one is more, it's like 3-issue miniseries for the stores, and the one that I read of that so far was a crew of a B-17 bombing crew.
All right.
And their missions. So each thing is a different protagonists and different factions too, from either if it's the British, Americans, Germans.
Yeah.
So
okay.
I'm really enjoying it.
And how's the art? Like any prominent artists on there?
No prominent artists, I don't think. I think each one has a different artist.
Okay.
The first one that I read, the one with the Germans, that one, the art on that one is really good.
Okay.
And the one with the the bombers one. That one was really good too.
Yeah,
because there's so many aircraft, and there's so many battles and stuff going on in the air. Like the art's not really good. The one with the British guys, the art on that one isn't as good as the other ones.
Oh,
but
okay.
I still enjoyed all of them though.
Yeah, nice. No. Well, as always, Loonies, we'll put some links in the show notes for you as well. So if you're interested, just click on the links, and it will take you to. I think I found a connection to. I think it was just a Wikipedia page about war stories by Garth Ennis. So that should take you to plenty of the things. But Josh, again, later on, if you have any particular issues and stuff that you'd like to share, just let us know, and I'll put those links in as well.
Okay.
Cool. For myself, just like little standouts of the past week. The first one, I'd have to say, trade-wise, it's from Dark Horse. It's called The Massive. So I'll tell you a little bit about that later in one of the shout-outs, but I got to talk about it on another podcast. It's basically like a post-apocalyptic scenario. The world has had a whole series of natural disasters, and society has kind of crumbled. And it follows an ex-mercenary who's a pacifist now, captaining a ship with a couple of others, and it's just about, the first trade's just them finding resources like fuel, water, food, and it's done pretty well. I think it's quite well grounded. The art's pretty good, written by Brian Wood. So Loonies will know Brian Wood from the Moon Knight run in 2014, I think. Or 2000, I can't remember, 2011?
No, he did the second, he took over after Warren Ellis,
yes.
I think. He did the...
So that's 2014-15, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, okay, yeah. So yeah, that's right. He was sandwiched between Warren Ellis and Cullen Bunn in those, the trilogy of Moon Knight, what is considered, volume 7, I think, of the Moon Knight canon.
Yeah, I think so.
Something like that. Depending on where you...
Yeah.
Which one you find.
It's so confusing. He has so many volumes.
Yeah. Well,
it's like trying to... It's like trying to follow the Punisher. It's like he has 13, 14 volumes.
I was about to say exactly. We'll get to that. Punisher volume 12. Friggin' hell. Anyway, so The Massive from Dark Horse. It's a bit older, so I think it came out around... I could be wrong here. I'm just stretching. I think it came around 2013. Or I could have misread that. It could be 2003. But it's been out for a while, and they've got trays and hardcovers. The other one, more recent, Marvel-related as well, Absolute Carnage. Now, this is a brilliant first issue for an event. I might be, I think I'll be trade waiting for this event. I don't have enough coin to sustain following this. Josh, we were talking, just before about our collections. I won't be able to follow it, in physical format, but I might trade wait. But I did read the digital version of issue 1, and it is a cracker. Donny Cates, he comes through with the goods, and Ryan Stegman, brilliant artwork. Josh, are you have you any inclination towards symbiotes at all, or that kind of world?
Not really.
Okay.
I mean, I like the Carnage's first appearance and Maximum Carnage. I like that.
Oh yes,
but I haven't really followed much afterwards because
Yeah.
I was debating on picking it up, but then I saw $7.99. I'm like, jeez.
I know it is a bomb, but in this instance, and in the digital version, you get the director's cut, so there's 300 odd pages of. You get the script.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, you get the script. You get all the variant covers, and the story itself is pretty cool, I reckon. So it might be worth getting. Like you as well, I don't know too much about the symbiote world. I like Venom. I like Carnage from the 90s as well. The Mark Bagley introduction, Maximum Carnage. Yeah, I read that. It's a bit of a upper downer, but it's got its place in the history. But anyway, this one, it's dark. It's kind of horror tinged. It doesn't mess about, and it puts it's got Spidey in there as well. So I can't laud it enough. I think it was probably the pick of the week for me of the past week. So yeah, definitely Absolute Carnage is worth getting. Right, well, news-wise, White Noise, there's not much again similar to last week. Look, we're going to fly through this, Josh. These things, I mean, they're almost exhausting, aren't they? Looking on the internet and coming up with, yet again, some fan casting, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, the rumour is that Andrew Garfield, apparently, is Marvel's top choice for Moon Knight. This is off the back of recently, speculating whether Keanu Reeves will be Moon Knight. Josh, thoughts on this? Andrew Garfield, is he a good fit?
Not to me, no, I don't think so. I mean, in all honesty, I hate any kind of fan casting.
Yeah.
It just, for something about it just bothers me. I think it's just because especially, not even just for Moon Knight, but over the past, couple months, maybe even year, it's who's going to be the next Batman? Who's going to be cast as Wolverine? It's I think this. I got to the point where it annoyed me so much, just as a joke. I just took 2 pictures of my cat, put a Batman symbol on one, and the X-Men X on O. I'm here's who I think is going to be the next one, because it's just just drives me nuts. But Andrew Garfield, nah, to me, no.
I agree as well. He looks too young, too clean cut for me to be a mercenary as well. Doesn't really suit. It's funny, isn't it? People get into arguments over this stuff as well, like fan casting. It's all hypothetical, you know what I mean? Anyway, so that was one of them. I just picked that. Look, I just trawled the internet. The other one was apparently there's a mention also of from We Got It Covered, I think, the website, which is not totally credible. Also mentions Joseph Gordon-Levitt is under consideration for Moon Knight. Those of you who remember, he featured in The Dark Knight Rises. He was the Robin that was alluded to. He was that guy. And the guy from, Third Rock from the Sun? Pretty funny show.
I've never seen that one. He's been in a lot of stuff, actually, the past couple years.
Yeah, he's a good actor. Good actor.
Oh, yeah, and actually, if I, between him and Garfield, I'd actually prefer him instead. Yeah. I think he would be better between the two of them. Yeah.
Oh, me too. By far, yeah, without a shadow of a doubt. I mean, because he can pull it off. I reckon he can pull off the different personalities, stuff like that. So, so I mean, those are the two. I'm sure there's going to be even more. Look, this is all a buzz from the San Diego announcements and speculation, and I'm sure the D23, is that what it's called?
Yeah.
D23 is coming out end of August or something, and New York Comic Con's coming out. So there's a few more announcements going to be coming our way. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of Moon Knight speculation. Look, and rightly so within our arena, Josh. We are a Moon Knight community. We should well be abuzz with something. But let's see. Hopefully, we were disappointed with San Diego. Maybe something else will pop up. I also want to actually, again, another reminder from our interview with J.M. DeMatteis. Moon Knight will be popping up in the Spider-Man animated series. So we've got to keep our eyes out for that. So that's quite exciting. I'm not sure if you caught any of the Spider-Man animated series, Josh.
No, I have not. Okay. The only thing of it I have watched was I think there was a clip of, or maybe that was in the Ultimate Spider-Man.
That was the
of Moon Knight's appearance in that one.
Right.
There's one episode where he took it, so I just watched the clips from that.
Oh, okay. No, this latest series of Spider-Man, it's just called Marvel's Spider-Man. I think it's adjectiveless. It's quite good. I mean, I'm not an animated show watcher. I'm not an avid animated show watcher, but this is done quite well. I think it can appeal to both the young audience and to older fans. So I'd be interested to see how Moon Knight plays into that. Anyway, also through Night's Watch again. This is a request from one of the Loonies. Any appearances of Moon Knight, we want to be the watchdogs for all the Loonies out there to give you the heads up. And of course, Punisher 14. What we said before, Volume 12, Issue 14. It's crazy. Yeah, it took me a while to friggin' find out which bloody volume it was. I thought Volume 2, I was way off the mark. But Volume 12, Moon Knight appears towards the end of it.
Hey, Looney listeners, it's Phil Parrish from the Capes and Lunatics podcast. Don't tell Ray, but I'm hijacking the show. I just wanted to get my quick thoughts in on this week's Punisher number 14, because we got an appearance by our boy Moon Knight. I've been loving this Punisher run, especially, you know, everything with the Kingpin and Baron Zemo bringing back the Thunderbolts. And I'm like, are they working together? Is one of them... is Zemo planning the double-cross Kingpin? Which, I don't know if it's ever a good thing. But yeah, I love the Thunderbolts. And Punisher seems like he's getting his own army with Black Widow and Night Thrasher. It looks like we're even getting Danny Ketch Ghost Rider coming back. Shout out to Inner Demons Podcast. But yeah, I mean... I think Moon Knight's the only one who's brave enough or crazy enough or both who can just get in the Punisher's face and not get killed, you know, by saying stuff like, "Hey, Frank, how's the dead family?" When are they going to give this Moon Knight guy a show already? Come on. Ultra-violence somewhere. Come on. Alright, so, again, just love this issue. It was a straight-up A for me. And... remember, again, this is our little secret. Don't tell Ray I hijacked the show. And thank you, Khonshu, for your time and the Looney listeners. All right. I guess we'll give Ray back control. Back to the show.
So this is quite interesting. Obviously, it sets up for issue 15, which will definitely have more Moon Knight action. But, Josh, did you catch the pages of this? I think it was posted up in the group as well.
Yeah, somebody posted it, so I just read that I am gonna buy issue 15 to read that because of not only Moon Knight but Night Thrasher too.
I know, how cool is that?
But I just that page where he appears, I just read that.
Yeah,
like when somebody posted it.
Yeah, I think it was pretty funny. I like the kind of style that Rosenberg kind of gives Moon Knight. What was it? Night Thrasher goes, "What did Punisher just call me?" And Moon Knight goes, "Oh, I think he called you a mental patient." And then Night Thrasher goes, "No, I don't think that was me. I don't think that was me." So there's a little quirkiness to Moon Knight, but there's also the reiteration that, you know, he's mentally kind of unstable. It makes for... I can't wait for 15. I think it'll be good. But for the completionists, yeah, he's in issue 14. Go look it up. Or if you just want to read the page, it's on our ITK Facebook group for you as well. Okay, well, that about wraps up just like our preamble. We're going to go into... now, Josh, the meat of this episode, and very Mooney-centric, as well as West Coast Avengers-centric. This is, Over the Moon. Yes, Over the Moon, our trade arc review. So, as mentioned, it is a waxing gibbous up in the sky, and we're looking at Volume 2, issues 25 to 30. So, these issues, and Josh, I'll let you do the honours of going through some of the credits for all these issues, if you don't mind. Yeah?
Okay.
All right. So this was released between October 1987 to March 1988. And it's still available digitally. I'm sure you can get it on Comixology, Marvel Unlimited. It's in singles if you can find your bargain bins and your back issues. It's also in trade paperback. I know Epic Collection are releasing a version of West Coast Avengers which will encapsulate these issues as well. As well as it's also been previously issued in hardcover trade. I've seen that definitely in my local comic book store. So it has been, if you do look hard enough or look on eBay, you can probably find a copy, but you should be able to find it somewhere. And Josh, so with these 6 issues, we have a variety of creators.
All right, yeah. So the issues 25 to 29 were written by Steve Englehart. Mm-hmm. Issue 30 is written by Al Milgrom, who also draws. He's the penciler for the entire arc. Mm-hmm. Let's see here. I think the colorists are Sorry, there's like a break in the prompt between. so your inkers are, let's see, Mike Machlan.
I think he's for all of them.
I think he is too. Yep. Let's see, colorists you have. Let's see, Christie Scheele, Paul Becton, Julianna Ferriter. Bob Sharen, Gregory Wright. I think every issue has a different colorist. It seems like.
I can't say I noticed the difference in colouring, but anyway, well, maybe I'll have a look. We'll go through it.
Yeah. Oh man, this is going all over the place here. Oh man, let's see.
I should have counted.
Yeah. I think I covered all the colorists, and the letterer looks like it's. Let's see, Ken Lopez, Bill Oakley, Tom Orzechowski. None of these are in order, by the way. I'm just scrolling back and forth.
No. So, yeah, exactly. No. It's a group
and the overall, it's a group effort, yep. And then the editor overall is Mark Gruenwald.
The great Mark Gruenwald.
So everyone that I mentioned did have a place somewhere within these.
Yeah, it is. Look, the big hitters, obviously, Steve Englehart, Al Milgrom, Mike Machlan, I think, and Mark Gruenwald, editor. But there's a slew of colorists and letterers in here as well. So anyway, as always, for this trade arc review, actually, we'll start off with a synopsis, and then Josh and I will start getting into, and this was introduced in our last episode, some particular aspects of this arc as a whole. So we'll be looking at writing, we'll be looking at the artwork, we'll be looking at themes for covering these 6 issues. We'll look at characterizations of these characters and references and how this ties into any of the other runs in the Marvel Universe or the titles going on at the time. So, so I've got a little synopsis here that covers all 6 issues. And, here it goes. Simon Williams, Wonder Man, discovers through a tussle with a possessed abomination that although he loves the adoration that comes with being a movie star, his heart belongs to the West Coast Avengers and fighting crime. Meanwhile, Taurus becomes the sole survivor of the Zodiac cartel when Jake Fury, masquerading as a Scorpio within the group, reveals himself and sets his own team of LMD Zodiacs upon them. Jake reveals that he too is an LMD, and his band of Zodiacs kill all but Taurus, who manages to flee. Taurus approaches the West Coast Avengers, asking for their help to put a stop to Jake Fury and his LMD Zodiac squad. Elsewhere, Bobby Morse, aka Mockingbird, laments not having told Hawkeye the entire truth about her final confrontation with the Phantom Rider and his seemingly innocent fate. The Avengers tussle with the Zodiac at a cattle breeding auction of all places, but are ultimately unsuccessful in capturing them. A short while after, Hawkeye is ambushed by the 12 members and he's abducted and replaced by an LMD version, unbeknownst to his teammates. Reconvening with the West Coast Avengers, Taurus predicts the Zodiac are to strike a mint, much to the suspicion of Moon Knight. The White Knight does not entirely trust Taurus, but entertains Taurus's insistence that his assistance with the West Coast Avengers is entirely altruistic. Moon Knight shares a kiss with Tigra, whilst Mockingbird finally confronts the LMD Hawkeye about the truth with Phantom Rider. She soon discovers that he isn't really Hawkeye, and with the help of Tigra they dispose of the android Mole. A reveal shows that Tigra too is also an LMD, being a second mole planted by the Zodiac to infiltrate the Avengers compound. The Avengers catch up with the Zodiac at the Denver Mint, and another battle ensues. The Zodiac are able to escape to Death Valley via the Zodiac Key, and Iron Man reveals his knowledge of the Zodiac Key. It essentially thrives on conflict, so when the realm from which it originated no longer satiates its needs, it's transported to Earth in search of conflict and sustenance. Moon Knight's knowledge of astrology is used to confirm that Taurus's next prediction of where the Zodiac will be is correct, and with his suspicions eased somewhat, the West Coast Avengers head to Death Valley and find what they are looking for, the Zodiac. Tigra reveals herself as an LMD, but the Zodiac and Jake Fury are defeated, only for them all to be resurrected by the Zodiac key itself. They are then all transported away to the realm of the Brotherhood, whilst Taurus uses the opportunity to escape. The Zodiac are all incapacitated, as there is no zodiacal energy in the realm of the Brotherhood, but the Avengers find the real Hawkeye and Tigra and are reunited. They encounter the Brotherhood, who wish not to fight them lest they lose an opportunity to feed off conflict which may occur on Earth. So they return the West Coast Avengers back home with a warning that they will send the key over to Earth again when they least expect it, to feed off the conflict which the Avengers or others may generate in the years to come. They are brought back, and having discovered Taurus's escape, Moon Knight vows to track him down. The chase is on, and after a brief encounter with the Shroud, Taurus flees an ever-encroaching Moon Knight. Their fight sees them high in the sky as Taurus tries to fly away on a hijacked plane, but he meets his death as the aircraft plummets out of control, whilst a falling Moon Knight is saved by Iron Man. Hawkeye is livid at the Fist of Khonshu for having not worked as a team, and for the apparent cold-blooded murder of Taurus. Finally, after a bit of respite, Simon Williams is abducted by a race of aliens, the Sligs, who want to analyse earthly specimens before proposing to invade the planet. The West Coast Avengers come to Simon's rescue, but all are transported to another realm where they are each in turn tested by the Examiner. The Avengers manage to ultimately defeat the aliens and return home. The Sligs manage to send their data to their Supreme One, and a composite Avenger, or artist's impression, is collated, giving enough reason for the Sligs to call off their plans to invade a planet with clearly formidable inhabitants. Yep, so that was the synopsis for all those 6 issues of West Coast Avengers Volume 2, issues 25 to 30. Josh, we have given the credits, we've given the synopsis, let's get into this. The first thing, I guess, thoughts about writing. The first note I've put in is that it's obviously very much a thing of the time.
Yes.
It's almost like a little caveat. Again, we're looking to the mid-late 80s. You'll get a little bit more dialogue, a little bit more text, I don't know, and the way that people kind of speak to each other is a lot more informal, I think, than what you get these days. I think these days readers are a little bit more savvy, and things don't seem necessarily as jocular as it can seem back in the 80s.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Same thoughts, I guess, Josh, as well. It's very much, you can pinpoint it as an 80s comic.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Like one of the, let's just say, one of the big points of the whole Zodiac, the Zodiac sort of arc is like the Zodiac key.
Yep.
Was like it's a weapon used by Scorpio, who is like the leader of the cartel.
Yes.
With LMDs, but I guess it has its own consciousness or whatever.
Yeah.
But it's like, oh, I need to feed on conflict in order to live or whatever. And I'm like, that is so stupid.
Yeah.
Like, thinking like modernly, but I guess back then it's like, I guess it works, but I'm just like, this is so dumb.
Yeah, I think, looking back on it, like, retrospectively, as you say, look, it can be seen as, like, really dumb and silly, and it does. I mean, modern views, definitely. But sometimes I think the mechanics of what, I guess, Englehart is trying to do can be a little, I guess, you can say, convoluted, a little too complicated for the fact that, as you say, it's a Zodiac key. This thing, it thrives on conflict. So you see at the end as well, not at the end, it's at issue 29, the Brotherhood, they refuse to fight the Avengers because they're saying, look, if we defeat you now, then there'll be no conflict later. So look, let's stop the battle here, which is at the realm of the Brotherhood, and we'll let you guys go. And you just keep an eye out, like on Earth, because, you know, when you least expect it, we'll thrust the Zodiac key there, and, you know, it can kind of, I don't know, feed off the conflict. And, yeah, it's all a bit silly, isn't it? I mean,
yeah.
Even Iron Man says towards the end, I don't know how to react to this. I think he says something along the lines of, I don't, you know, let's fight, you know, we're here. And no one could really make sense of it. So there is a bit of silliness as well. There's also a bit of drama in there. What did you think of? And we'll get to it a lot with the references. But Bobby has this kind of burning secret that she wants to tell Hawkeye all the time, and she can't. But this is the thing that goes throughout the whole story, and it comes to the fact that she gets so guilty about it, she needs to tell him out front.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that aspect of it because that's like that sort of seems like a very like real world kind of thing. Like she feels really guilty about it. She hasn't told Hawkeye about what happened between her and the Phantom Rider, but as it goes on, she sort of like she feels like, should I tell him? Should I not?
Yeah.
Even to the point where she starts getting advice from other people.
Yes.
Like even like interrupting Nick Fury while he's showering. Like, hey, you've killed a lot of people. Do you ever feel guilty about it? Would you tell anybody about it? Like, I can't.
Yeah. Sorry. What I loved about that was that he came out of the shower. What's the first thing he does? He puts a cigar in his mouth. You see that? Starts smoking away. Sorry, I interrupted you there.
But I like that, and then of course it's like the classic where she finally decides to tell him, but the of course at the time Hawkeye's a robot.
Yeah, well that was the thing I was about to say. What Englehart does is that he kind of adds another layer to it as well. So she actually gets more and more guilty from the reaction of the LMD Hawkeye. You know, it's not even the real Hawkeye. So that's pretty. I thought that was a pretty fun bit of writing by having that. So that's a miscommunication. That's a misunderstanding.
Yeah, because she's like, oh, I feel so guilty about this, but I'm finally gonna tell him. And he's just like, oh well, so what? So he killed somebody.
Yeah, exactly. She goes, oh, he must be really mad at me. You know, if he's like, it's all this kind of passive aggressive, you know, not really telling each other what they think and all that.
That did lead to a fun moment. Like right after that, she's like goes to give him a shove to be like, "Are you serious?" Like that's, but then like it makes like a clunk noise. Like that's the onomatopoeia. I know. But then she's like clunk. Yeah. Like that's a joke that only works in comics and nowhere else.
It's so silly, isn't it? Because like you know, you've got an LMD, a live model decoy, to the fact that it can actually replicate and persuade people that it is that person. How could they not make it synthetic enough to make it feel like, you know, the tactile quality of that LMD? You know, I found that hilarious how it's like this looks and breathes and sounds and talks like the real thing, but if you touch it, you're going to figure out that it's a robot. You know what I mean? It's pretty it's pretty funny. But yeah, so that's another thing as well with the writing. So Englehart, he introduces a lot of things in here. So we've got that Zodiac key, which admittedly towards the end is described by Iron Man. You get a bit of an exposition about it just towards the end. I found that actually, that was a bit weird, Josh. You notice Scorpio was trying to use it and it didn't want to be used, like it didn't work. You know how he was trying to shaking it and he wanted to use it. Didn't. Was that because there was a lack of conflict? Because they were right in the middle of battle, right? So that didn't really make sense.
Yeah, I don't know. I think maybe it was because if he would use the key, it would end the conflict, and therefore it would cease to work, I guess. I don't know. I was a little confused by it, too.
But even that, like from what you say, is really funny because it's like it's trying to nip it in the bud now because it will end conflict. But by doing that, you're depriving yourself of the conflict. You know what I mean? So it's anyway, funny bit of writing there. So we get this with the Zodiac key. We get the realm of the Brotherhood, which are these mysterious hooded men or priests that control the Zodiac key. The LMDs, so I find that it's always fun to have LMDs in there. I found them a really fun use, and we get two of them. So we get, obviously Hawkeye was a big one, but we get a second one, Josh, don't we?
Yeah, we got the end of issue 27. Yeah, 27. It's revealed that Tigra is also an LMD, which that actually came as a shocking twist to me. I did not see that coming.
Yeah, me too as well. I thought that was a very clever bit, because you'd expect, just the one LMD done, but immediately after actually they dispose of the LMD Hawkeye, Mockingbird and Tigra, at the end of that issue, you see her talking into her wrist and saying, "Yep, they found the first one, but they haven't got the second one." I thought it was a very good twist. I did look at your notes further, Josh, as well. I'm just going to jump straight to it because you mentioned something about you questioned whether it was the LMD Tigra that kissed Moon Knight and whether the real Tigra likes Moon Knight or not. I thought at that night where she does kind of ambush him in the woods, I thought that was the real Tigra because I think it mentions later on that she got abducted shortly after that, I think. So I think... I
thought it was like because it shows because he's standing outside and then like he sees someone move like far away and then she jumps out behind him. So I think he saw the original one in the distance, and then that's when the LMD jumped in and started getting, making out with him basically.
Yeah, right. Okay. I thought that flash was just her, like she kind of circled around or something. But yeah, right. Okay. Yeah, no, definitely could be. Look, and I'm gonna jump here because that does trigger off one of the other points that I had. Characterizations here, Josh. So this thing with Tigra and Moon Knight, you're a custodian of the classic era. So this was a thing, right? So was this the beginning of it? Like, did Moon Knight have a relationship with Tigra in the West Coast Avengers?
I believe he was a furry, yes. Yeah, I think they did have... I haven't read that, but I think I remember like a while like reading like just on Moon Knight's Wikipedia that they did have a relationship for a bit.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, that's why I said it's like in this like so that's why when I read this, like keeping that in mind, I was like, oh, this is where it sort of starts like the romance between them. But then as you read on, I'm thinking, oh no,
right.
that was the LMD. But then that's why I wrote in my things that I was reading it word for word. But at this point, does the real Tigra want that MK dick? It's like at this point, does she like him at this point, or will that take place a little later?
True. I guess you can also argue the point that if the LMD Tigra was created via the Zodiac key, it's pretty much a walking, talking version of Tigra. So maybe it does parallel her true feelings to Moon Knight as well.
That's a good point.
Yeah,
too.
Potentially. So which could then tie into obviously them having that relationship later on. I'm actually keen to explore what happens between them. Tigra seems to be a bit of a player. I don't know if you get that sense.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so they're an odd couple to say the least, but I found them quite. It was quite fun to see them together in this little romp. Like even Moon Knight confides with her towards the end, right? When she wants to just check if Taurus is telling the truth about reading the moon, about where they're going to be in the Denver Mint, and Moon Knight whispers to her. You remember that, and then they reveal it, and Tigra goes, "Yep, man, you're spot on," because that's exactly what Moon Knight said. Yeah. So sorry, you were about to say something.
Oh, I was gonna say, but when you think about it, so Moon Knight has Egyptian roots, and Tigra's a cat lady.
True. Oh yeah.
What do the Egyptians worship? Cats.
Actually.
So it kind of makes sense.
That makes it...
Maybe Khonshu's saying, "Yeah, go hit that cat lady."
That's a very good point, actually. Far out. Yeah. There could be that. Yeah. That what do you call it? The instincts. Yeah.
Plus, I think it's also nice to see Moon Knight with somebody else besides Marlene. I mean,
well, again,
majority of comic book characters have multiple love interests, and I mean, we've only ever really seen him with Marlene, and that's it. So I think it would be nice to see something a little different, him with somebody else.
Oh yeah, he's got a fair bit to go before he equals, say, the likes of Matt Murdock with his love interests. But you know, our Mooney, our boy's a particular sort, I guess. He does have those multiple identities running around in his head. So, but yeah, I'd like to see him with with someone else. But I do like Marlene as well. And look, hey, also there is a connection as well. This does reference, again, I'm jumping to our points about references. There is a reference to Fist of Khonshu, Volume 2, Issue 4, I believe it was. I don't think I put it... Oh, yeah, I did put it in there. And apparently Marlene has recently left Mark. So that's kind of left him... And he mentions that to Tigra in the woods, saying, like, he's going through a lot of changes because she's talking about relationships. Right. So that's good. I do love how, you know, the continuity between titles was a lot tighter back in the 80s than it is like nowadays. Nowadays it's almost non-existent.
Yeah, definitely. Like that's another reason why I don't really like modern comics as much, because it's like just as an example, it's like, so if you say you're reading Avengers or like the War of the Realms now, it's like Captain America's out there fighting with all the other heroes, but then there's in his own book he's in prison.
Yes,
it's like there needs to like. Yeah, but yeah, you're right. Like back then, like they had the editorial had the continuity really nailed down, not like it is today.
That's one of my pet peeves of the current comic books. Like, God, what was it? It was one of these other, I think it was Civil War 2 or something, and I remember distinctly because I was collecting Doctor Strange at that time, and he's there in New York fighting these, you know, I can't remember what it was, celestial beings or something. I can't remember the event. But then reading his title, and he's like in another dimension, I'm going, no, the whole point is that you have a nice stitched, everything's connected. That's what kind of Feige says, doesn't he? So,
it's like, and not only it's like, I think it's maybe like a good challenge for the writer of that event. It's like, well, what characters are available? Okay, I'm gonna write this event with those characters in mind, not like, well, Captain America's in prison, but he needs to be here fighting. It's like he doesn't need to be. You just want him there because Captain America is a popular hero. It's like, don't you want to challenge yourself a little bit too?
Yeah, like
you don't need or like for the same thing with War of the Realms. It's like at the same time the Spider-Man Hunted storyline was going on.
Yeah,
when Central Park had the
that was a really cool. I love that little arc. That was good.
Yeah, I enjoyed it, but it's like, but it's like, okay, that's going on. Yep. Maybe you don't need Spider-Man War of the Realms then. He's doing his own thing. It's like I do think I think editors need to be a little more firm on like continuity like that with their writers.
I think, and not only that, because I understand that there are different editors in different departments, so there's almost like a silo mentality where, say for instance, the Spider-Man department under Nick Lowe, they should be talking to, whatever, the whoever is editing the big events, to make sure that there's consistency and continuity. But I guess Marvel is quite big and it's busy, and the amount of titles they have, they've just lost their way a little with coordinating, continuity between departments, which is a real shame because, that's a big thing for me. I mean, that's one of the reasons why I love Valiant. Everything is so tightly kind of written in together. It's really good. But anyway, having said that, with the character, let's jump to characterizations, Josh, because I want you to go through your points. So looking at characterizations about Moon Knight, about any of the other characters, are they true to character? Are there any new takes or new ways that characters are depicted? What have you got on your notes here?
Well, I only have one thing for Moon Knight because you cover you have a lot on your list, and you pretty much got all the big stuff. But the only thing I have is that Mark reveals his identity pretty quick to his teammates, which is kind of like shocking to me because there's there's that one scene where they're just him and I think Hawkeye are and is it
Bob
Mockingbird, I think?
yeah.
Yeah, like they're just driving around just out of costume talking. I'm like that, like that's like to me like that's weird. Like I always thought that Mark would be like he'd be part of the team, but he'd be like separate, like in his own room or doing his own thing, not like chilling outside a costume with the rest of them.
Yeah, this is one of the points. I guess with Moon Knight, the way he's depicted, he very much, and it's shown very early on in issue 25, actually, as a little subplot. He's shown really wanting to join the West Coast Avengers, whereas, I don't know, Josh, about yourself, but to me, he always seems to want to be a lone wolf in any other kind of series that we've done. So when you're saying that he reveals, that surprised me as well, that he reveals his identity to them pretty openly. To me, that's something that, from what I understand, Moon Knight wouldn't really do. He'd keep to himself, if anything. So
I think it's because like I say, like the Fist of Khonshu run, it's only like 6 issues. But I think with that, like it changed him to the point where he sort of, where he wants to change like how he was, maybe like how he was before, because like I said, because all that stuff, like with Marlene leaving him and stuff, and she leaves him because of all like the identity stuff and whatever. But that also, like they I think they show it as like a flashback to like the end of like the volume 1. Mm-hmm. So I think at this point he's in like this transitional stage where he's like, well, I'm gonna, like, I have like a new costume, I have some new powers and stuff. Yeah. I'm not really dealing with, I mean, a bit with the personality, but not as much as I used to be before. I was by myself except for Frenchie before, so now I'm going to try to do something different with myself. Yeah. And I think that's why he's doing that.
Right, okay. So that makes, so there is a little bit of something in Fist of Khonshu which kind of explains that. Is that right? Because I haven't read that in ages, so I can't remember.
Yeah, like I said, I think it's just like that issue, that run was just a little like transitional period, and then this is what it kind of leads to. Yeah, and he's just continuing from that. Yeah,
because it kind of actually that is repeated. It reminded me in Mark Spector Moon Knight, he does that again, like in and around the JMD Mateus run of the Scarlet Redemption, where he kind of reneges the way that he has been handling himself as a hero, and he becomes almost like a, do you remember that, where he becomes almost like a negotiator? He doesn't use physical violence. He kind of talks the criminals out of their crimes instead. Oh, yeah, right. He tries to be a bit more passive. So it reared its head again in Mark Spector Moon Knight. But over here certainly, if you do, the notes I had here, if you do compare it to how Moon Knight is compared to Fist of Khonshu, there are some consistencies and some not quite so. I mean, his costume is fairly consistent. He's got the gold, like the belt and the bracelets and stuff, and he's got the weaponry, the Egyptian kind of relics to throw at and stuff. His power set, so his key power set, which I do like, they do make a nod to it because for much of this whole arc, you don't see it, which is surprising. I would have thought they would have, there were many battles in here, Josh. There were many action scenes, but you never actually see him describe how he's a lot stronger because it's a full moon or anything like that. He notes in issue 29, in the realm of the Brotherhood, how his lunar energy has depleted or has gone, similar to the zodiacal energy that all the LMDs had been running off when they, how they shut down. So there's a little nod to that. But what was there another one I had here? No. And also in issue 30, I thought that was really cool, that the last issue. So I guess this is a hats off to Al Milgrom who wrote it. I love that bit, Josh, where he actually, so in that last issue where each of the Avengers fight the Examiner, or whatever it's called, he draws on the powers of all the moons around him, because that realm that they're at, or the planet that they're on, has multiple moons, and Khonshu tells him, you get your power from the moon. Like, look around you. You got moons everywhere. Just and he goes batshit. He goes crazy. You say where he's just laughing maniacally, and he jumps onto the examiner and he starts bashing him. And I'm not sure whether it's just because he's crazy that the examiner's going, what the hell's going on here? Okay, I surrender, or whether he actually does get the power of the moon. I love that ambiguity.
Yeah. I mean, it is convenient that where they're at just happens to be surrounded by a whole bunch of moons and not a whole bunch of suns. Because if not, like, because that's when I was originally thinking, I'm like, oh, I know how this is going to go. This is going to be everyone else beats it and then beats that robot, and then Moon Knight's going to be the one to fuck it up. Yeah. So that's originally what I thought. Okay. But then no, he's the one that pretty much handled it pretty much the best, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't know how he was going to handle it because all the other Avengers are way more powered than him, arguably have got more skill. But I like that little surprise with the writing, how, Khonshu just comes up. And a little hark back because it reminded me of that previous trade arc that we did, Josh, of Lost in Time Space, where you do see Khonshu and you see all the little moons when I think he talks to Hawkeye. Back in the yeah, and so obviously the same artists, but you got the same aesthetic there when Khonshu talks to Moon Knight. Have you got so any other characterizations there, Josh, that you've pinpointed?
Oh, let's see. With like the LMDs, like the Hawkeye LMD, I think everyone should have been able to figure out because. Yeah. He was way more a prick than he usually is. I mean, you shouldn't have to, like, it should have been to the point where she pushes him and feels the metal, like it shouldn't have got that far that he's wrong, especially when he's like, oh no, we're gonna, they're like, oh, we're going to, because the Zodiac cartel, they're gonna attack Philadelphia. Well, that's right next to where the East Coast Avengers are. Just have them go there. No, we're gonna go all the way across the country to do that. It's like,
yep.
Doesn't that raise an eyebrow or so?
Oh, yeah, definitely. and even the little things, like when he first arrives back at the mansion, doesn't he walk off in the wrong direction? They're all going, hang on, isn't his quarters with Mockingbird, on the east wing?
Oh,
Why is he walking west? So, yeah, he's kind of almost given the game away there. But, but Hawkeye himself, I think, was pretty consistently written. I think he's kind of like the flawed leader, right? He did actually very much remind me of, not to the same extent, but like the modern day Hawkeye. Not entirely, I was about to say not entirely dependable. I don't want to say that because he's pretty good at using the bows and arrows. But he, I guess he loses his cool a bit as a leader. Like he's not your Captain. He's not your Captain America. So yeah, I thought maybe I thought Hawkeye himself was pretty good.
Yeah, he actually has a pretty cool fight scene at the start of I think it's 27. Yeah, where he's just walking down the street.
Yes,
like the first, just the opening splash of him walking down the street, and then just all the Zodiac guys just peeking around the corners and stuff. But he actually takes out.
He does.
He actually takes out like half of them before they overcome him.
You're right, yeah.
He's taken down by the Hawkeye LMD.
That's right. Yeah, you're right. Actually, he's quite capable. Of taking out nearly the whole Zodiac site. And let's not forget as well, while was he walking down the street? He was watching repeated viewings of Simon Williams's Arkan 6.
Oh, yeah, his movie.
Saying, I shouldn't let Wonder Man know that I've actually seen his movie a few times. So I thought that was pretty funny. I like the humour. Actually, speaking of humour, Josh, I like the humour in this whole run. One of the things that really got me laughing was in issue 30. The aliens, the Sligs, and you know how the Examiner gets defeated each time, but he gets kind of reanimated. And then you get those Sligs going, just reanimate, recalibrate, and there's that little guy going, yep, okay, compliant. But there's a bit where it's going into overdrive a bit, and the guy's pushing him to go reanimate, reassemble. It's going to blow, and then he starts swearing in alien language.
Yeah. And they had to even make a little editor's note. It's like unprintable alien language or something like that. No, that was pretty funny.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty funny. So the humor, writing wise, the humor was I think really good. I like the one where they're at the cattle lodge thing, and like they bust in and all the cows get loose, and the guy's like, "Holy cow!" It's like, it's like that he was just grinning when he was writing that on the script. Yeah, it's so cringeworthy, and not only that as well. What is the form of intimidation that Scorpio does? He kills a cow. Like as they kind of enter, he goes, "You think I'm not serious?" And he kills a cow. I'm thinking, oh, geez,
It's like, guess what? They're probably getting sold off to be killed anyway,
exactly.
So no one here is shocked.
Exactly. It was a very odd place to have the Zodiac turn up at a breeder's cattle auction in Wichita. It's weird. Anyway, going back to characterizations, Josh, I've just got a few other things here for Moon Knight, which I'm sure you've picked up as well. So in this run as well, which is a point of difference, I think, is that there's this connection that Moon Knight has with Taurus, because they are both kind of connected to the moon through astrology. So what I found here, which is new to me, and look, I'm totally open that other future writers of Moon Knight will add this into Moon Knight's canon, is that he's pretty good at astrology. And he knows how to read, obviously, the moon, and he knows what's happening. The astrology in here, Josh, with the Zodiac, it's almost like fortune telling, isn't it? Like,
it's like where you read like your horoscope, and stuff like because when they first did that, because I never really heard about this. This is the first time I've seen the Zodiac, which I actually think it's a good kind of cabal of villains to use as their gimmick. I think it's pretty good. But then I was only thinking of it I wasn't thinking of it in the astrology, with the astrology point of view. I was only thinking of the thing you read in the paper, and it's like, someone important is going to come into your life this week if you were born in June or something like that. I'm like, oh no, they're going by the constellations and stuff. Yeah. And actually, I'm like, oh, you know what? That's actually a pretty interesting gimmick, and I think that works. I think Moon Knight going up against that, I think actually that's actually a pretty smart idea, to be honest.
Yeah.
And you would think that he would have that astrology connection, because he has, especially in this era where he's sort of powered by the phases of the moon.
Yeah. It
makes sense that he would have knowledge of all that kind of astrology stuff.
Oh no, yeah, I think it's a very interesting point to do. It's Tigra actually. There's a word, a thought bubble, and she's kind of going, look, I can handle magic and all that, and but astrology, this is a bit weird. Like, no one even knows much about Moon Knight, but he proves himself with it. I mean, because Taurus uses it himself. Taurus uses it to predict, apparently, where the Zodiac will be turning up next, and he does it twice. First one, he predicts that they'll be at the breeder's cattle auction for some reason, and the next time he predicts that they'll be hitting a mint, and he calls it Denver Mint. Moon Knight, somehow with his astrological knowledge as well, figures it out, and it's because of that Taurus has some credibility, because Moon Knight vouches that it's correct. The only downside of this that we see in this series is that Moon Knight really is wrong, though, in the fact of trusting Taurus. Like, Moon Knight puts his faith in astrology. He says it in issue 26, and therefore he gives his faith to Taurus, because Taurus is a follower of astrology. So Moon Knight vouches for the team for Taurus, vouches for Taurus to the team, and you even have Taurus saying, "What an idiot! Like, this guy's trusting me because of some moon garbage." So that's a bit of a downfall, I think. But yeah, a very interesting aspect of Moon Knight, which I reckon could be potentially explored further.
I think that would be a cool thing for them to include later down the road, because I mean, they haven't really done anything with it since, I don't think.
No, not at all. The other things I've got here as well for Moon Knight, again with characterization, his lone wolf mentality. Look, Josh, issue 29, pretty much showed that. He got berated by Hawkeye at the end for going out on his own and taking down Taurus. That was a fun issue. I've always got to laugh at Van Lunt. He just looks so awkward, you know. I'd prefer he keeps the bull head on his head.
Yeah.
Either that or get a haircut. You know, seriously, it's.
I do like how so has like a pretty roundish head, I guess. But then he puts on that bull mask.
Yeah.
But with the snout of the bull, it goes out 2 feet.
Yeah.
But somehow it still has all his facial expressions. I mean, that's the thing with comics. I mean, you just have a little bit of disbelief for that. It's because a lot of villains do. It's how does the Green Goblin mask does that too somehow.
Yes.
Even though it has eyes and a mouth on it.
Yeah.
But then it works with it. But
yeah,
I just find it funny because it's his the eyes on the mask are a foot away from him, yet they still work. They still work with his.
and it makes for translating onto the screen, if ever he was to be in a film, very difficult, because look what they did with the Green Goblin, you know. So also just a couple other things here quickly for Moon Knight. Characterization in issue 25, the very first one, but you actually covered it, Josh. You mentioned it. He in effect relieves Frenchie of his duties, and in lieu of becoming a West Coast Avenger. But as you mentioned, he wants to try something new. He's trying to go in a different direction, so that maybe that explains it. I thought when I initially read it, that's really weird, because aren't they really tight as mercenary buddies? But Frenchie nonchalantly goes, "Yep, okay, you don't want my services, I'm going to go somewhere else." But yeah.
Yeah, I actually really don't like that inclusion. That Englehart was smart enough to realize that Frenchie is a supporting character of Mark, instead of just, I'm just not going to include him. So so us as readers, I was what's going on with Frenchie? I like how he acknowledges it and is and has him talk and be I'm going to do this for a while, so you can go off and do whatever you want for now.
Well, yeah, that's true. So he does acknowledge it. And it's not a loophole that the fans will go, look, you just ignored him. So it's good that he did address it. That's cool. And the last one I had here was issue 30. So again, Josh, I'm sure you've read Fist of Khonshu a lot more recently than I have as well. There's this thing, I thought didn't he usually talk to, weren't there 3 priests, astral priests that he talked to, that were responsible for giving him his moon powers? Or was that?
Yes, there was.
Okay, so he didn't talk directly to Khonshu, did he, ever?
I'm trying to remember. I've read it in the past year, but I've read so much else, and it's sort of pushed out. I mean, I do remember the priests, and they did give him the powers and all the equipment and stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
but no, you're right, because I think if they ever needed to talk to him, he would teleport there or something, and then they would talk, and then he'd go back to where he needed to be.
Yeah.
But yeah. Oh, but you know what? In the one issue, I think they say it's the first time that he's ever talked to him face to face, quote unquote.
Oh, okay, right. I
forget which issue it is, but they say this is the first time that they've talked to one another.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. No, okay, well that makes sense. Yeah. Yeah, right. Anyway, so those were my points for the characterizations. Overall, Josh, did Moon Knight justice? Do you reckon Englehart did Moon Knight justice?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I enjoyed seeing him sort of work with the team, but then like I said, 29 I think is pretty much just a Moon Knight solo issue with just a couple cameos of the West Coast Avengers.
Yeah.
But I do think, and like you said, Hawkeye berates him for going and doing that solo because he goes after Taurus and defeats him. But like you said, I think it's sort of a connection to where you said how he put his faith in Taurus to sort of follow him and believe him because of the whole astrology thing. Mm-hmm. But then when that leads to him escaping, he's like, oh well, I sort of am responsible for him escaping, so I'm going to go take him down my way.
And actually, that's a pretty decent justification, I reckon, of Moon Knight to have done that. So it's his responsibility, yeah, for sure. No, actually, that actually gives it a lot more credence for Moon Knight. That's a good point, Josh. Look, let's just jump back to the writing aspects of it, Josh, because I want you to go through your notes. So with the writing, as we said, it's done in a very fun 80s way. A lot of action scenes, a lot of things happening. What else kind of stood out for you in the writing, Josh?
Okay, well, the issue 25, so the first story, I actually think I enjoyed seeing Simon Williams as
me too.
So as a celebrity, like a movie star, but he's also super. It's sort of like what Tony Stark sort of became in the MCU, where he's like a celebrity superhero. So I enjoyed that, where he's going out and at his movie premiere and doing all these stunts and stuff to kind of get everybody pumped up for the movie. So I thought that was actually pretty fun.
Yeah, I like Wonder Man. I think I like him in this era where he's got that suit. His suit of the black suit with the red W and the jetpack.
And the red eyes.
And the red eyes.
Really, they do look real weird. I think when we did the previous arc, I didn't really pay much attention, but I think Dustin in his arc, he was saying how they were sort of unsettling.
Yeah.
Now I really see it. I'm like, oh god, those eyes are really. They really put me off.
Yeah, because they're not just red, right? You can imagine the way it's drawn is kind of like not pulsating, but it's just constantly kind of.
It's like a void. Like his eyes are like a void of just red energy. It's really weird.
Pure. I think he's a great character. Pure ionic energy. He can go toe to toe with the Hulk. He's close to. I think the way they write him now, he's kind of close to immortal. Because he's not really got a human form. He's got a human form, but he's really made up of ionic energy. And so he doesn't need to eat, he doesn't need to breathe, all that sort of stuff. And he's got, near limitless strength. He's a pretty big hitter, actually. And I think... Sorry, I'm just jumping a bit. I saw one of your notes saying the rivalry... Ironically, the rivalry with Iron Man, like you're talking about his celebrity status... that's one of the things, isn't it? That kind of continuing thread that Englehart always works on, how Iron Man and Wonder Man seem to not like each other too much.
Yeah, well, it wasn't as prominent in this one as it was in the previous one.
Oh, it was
in the other one. It's like they're just punching villains, and they're each taking a villain, and Wonder Man would just look over his shoulder, and be like, "Yeah, fuck you, Iron Man, I'm the leader," and then just throughout the entire thing, it's not really prominent here, at all. Aside, I think there's one scene in the issue 25 when Tony goes to Wonder Man's room, and he's like, he's not here. Why isn't he here past the curfew? Right. It's like, dude,
you've got an
he's a movie star. Yeah. It's like, why do you care? He's a grown ass man. Why do you care?
Yeah, you've got an unhealthy obsession with him. It's
yeah. Yeah, but in this arc, I think those two, they were actually kind of boring. I think they were, out of all of them, I think they were the least, well characterized. Or maybe not Wonder Man, but Iron Man definitely. But he has his own book at the time, so I think it's okay.
Yeah, you're right. I think Iron Man not really utilized that much here. Look, he saves Moon Knight in issue 29 from falling, while Moon Knight's, lovingly just, wishing to be swallowed up into the void. That is death, I guess. But you're right. But issue 25 was good. You get actually a good sense of Wonder Man, and I'm not sure if you've read just the 90s run of the Wonder Man comics. It was really fun. It was his.
I have the first issue.
Right,
I
excellent.
Enjoyed it when I read it.
Yeah, it does, with some 90s comics, it does get a little wordy as well, but it's still a lot of fun seeing Simon's exploits in Hollywood. I wish they have another series of Wonder Man. I think he's a pacifist now, I think, which is a bit silly. But anyway.
Yeah.
Anyway, also, we talked about the Zodiac key. It thrives on conflict, as you're saying.
I was gonna say, if we jump to the issue 30, which I know everyone, I'm sure everyone like that issue stands out because of the cover.
The cover's hilarious.
It's. I mean, when I first saw that, I'm like, oh god, what is this going to be about?
Oh god, yeah.
And then, as we read it, like out of all the issues, that one was like my least favorite, just because.
Right.
I thought it was. I mean, I get it, sort of. But like I said, it reminded me of like a video game boss fight when you have like a group of characters and it's like, okay, you go in, defeat him, like, okay, you defeat the boss, but then you get knocked to the side. Okay, now the next character can go and fight. I'm like, that doesn't really do it for me.
It's really, for me, it's really, I enjoyed it but it's really on the nose, and it's again a kind of thing of the time. It's really pandering for me to, the fans that just want to see each of the characters' power sets and see how they, and see them fight in action. And that's all it was. It was just pandering to show the fans some action. Exactly as you say, I think it's like a boss fight. But there were some interesting ways that they each handle it. And what it actually told me is that the Examiner is a real piss-poor fighter, because he gets defeated how many times? Like 4 or 5 times. Like not one.
Well, there's like 7 members.
7 of them. He gets beaten 7 times. Not once does he win. It's ridiculous. Ridiculous. But it was a little bit of fun to see each of them come into their own. And again, like I said, I just loved how Moon Knight just went cray-cray and just friggin' maniacally laughing and just bashing Examiner. I did not expect that at all.
And I just have written here, I gotta read it word for word, the Sligs couldn't successfully invade Earth on their best day. Let's be real here. If the Skrulls and Kree couldn't do it, the Sligs couldn't do it, even if there wasn't any superheroes on Earth.
I think it's safe to say that this was the first and last time we ever saw the Sligs in Marvel Universe. Not the best. Look, admirable ideas of getting some mechanical bugs to go out and to capture some specimens and to test. I mean, there's nothing wrong with testing things out, but they just haven't got the ability or the know-how to actually follow through. So the Sligs were pretty, and they even have their own supreme intelligence as well. Did you see that? Some god awful sludge.
Yeah, I mean, I do. My favorite part, though, of the issue was at the very end, where they're like, "Okay, so we have the results of all the examination, and it's pretty combined, and this is what we think every single person on Earth looks like." And it's just that monstrosity that's on the cover, and I was like, "Oh, okay, that's actually pretty funny." And
that
they're
is
like,
funny.
"Oh, we're not going to invade Earth. We're not even going to go anywhere near it." It's like that was actually pretty funny.
Do you think that was intentional? Like, do you think that was meant to just look ridiculously over the top? Was that? I think
he drew the cover first. Yeah. I think he drew that just as a joke, and it's like because issue 30, that one was written by Al Milgrom, that wasn't by Steve Englehart. Yeah. So I think he drew that just for fun, and he's like, you know what, I'm gonna make a story. So that's like the punchline of it. And that's, I think, the story we got.
Yeah, that would be a good, truth, a reason for it. The more tragic truth would be if they all said in the Marvel bullpen, "Shit, that looks like a really cool character." Why did you put that on the front cover? And they sincerely meant that looked really awesome at the end. That would have been a little tragic because, tastes have definitely changed.
No, I'm pretty sure that what you said, that's probably
really, yeah. Oh god, that's terrible.
I mean, I think like the way I said it, where he drew it first and then was like, "Oh, look at this! I'm gonna make a story so this can be, so this is what the outcome is." But no, but probably what you said, it was probably the same thing where he just did it for fun, and they were like, oh my god, that looks so awesome. Like, yeah, like we should do something with that. Yeah,
dearie me. Well, anyway, it's there for posterity, and you can judge for yourself, Looney listeners. Actually, one of them, I think Adam Prine mentioned it. We'll get to our mini missives. Chonky, indeed. Look, other little bits of writing here. I want to get to the artwork, but a little bit interesting things. I thought was quite interesting was a way that Englehart handled the constant deaths of Jake Fury and how he explained that. And so we know in this arc that Jake Fury is an LMD himself, but he almost kind of, with the Zodiac key, gets reborn in a sense. Each time his consciousness gets reborn. He mentioned something about this is the destiny of the Scorpio to be reborn each time. And I thought that was a pretty nifty way of maybe addressing it, because in the Defenders run, he most definitely was dead. I mean, like he offed himself before Nick Fury could get to him. So that would be a pretty hard thing to explain. But I think Englehart handled it pretty well.
Yeah, I think that's a good, like, I guess, in-story logical way to sort of, like, have a villain that dies and then comes back, because I mean, villains do that all the time, where, you know, they fall off a cliff that's filled with jagged rocks. It's like, oh, they're definitely dead, but then, like, 10 issues later, they're back. It's like, well, I guess we can just assume, but, like, at least here he sort of gives them he gives it a reason to why he keeps coming back. I mean, it would be better if he was a more compelling villain, and maybe bigger villain in the universe. Yeah. That would make him more formidable. But
true.
I mean, I guess he's sort of, maybe he's not big, but he is I didn't know that Nick Fury had a brother. Like, I didn't know that. So
no, me too.
So he sort of is, he has relations to a big character. So I mean, he has that going for him. I guess.
Yeah, he's got a lot of potential. I mean, because of his link to Nick Fury, I think. And as you say, I think he's got the potential of being something bigger as well. So I'm not sure whether he's popped up, you know, in latter runs or not, Jake Fury / Scorpio, but that'll be interesting to find out, because, yeah, I mean, it's hard to gauge him now in these issues, because it's the 80s issues and everything's a little, you know, hammy and overblown. But, yeah, it'd be interesting to see if he pops up later on. So let's go to the art then, Josh. A lot of it is very, very consistent, I think. Milgrom's art. Do you like his artwork, or?
Well, this is really the only, like, these Avengers West Coast. That's the only thing I really seen him draw. Mm-hmm. Like, I like his writing because he wrote Round Robin. But I think it's pretty standard for the time. I don't think it's you know, excellent or great, but I think it's pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's, as you say, I think of the time, we don't get kind of art like this anymore. I actually do like it. It's got a particular charm to it. And it's funny, he's a talented guy, because you mentioned he wrote issue 30 and Round Robin, you said as well. But he also inked one of my favourite runs as well, which was Peter David's All New, All Different X Factor. I didn't realise he inked all of Larry Stroman's work there, and the art.
Yeah, he's a multi-threat guy. Yeah. He's written, penciled, and inked. So yeah, he's very talented.
Very good indeed. But yeah, standard for the time. You're saying what else? The Zodiac members, they have different designs.
Yeah, well, I would say of the LMDs, like, I think they all have pretty neat and unique designs to their pointed like gimmick. Like obviously Taurus is a bull. Yeah. Aquarius is like a fish kind of thing. Like, because there's at the start of the arc, they're just the humans, and their designs are pretty dumb, but they're supposed to, because they're going to be killed off. But I think all the LMD designs for the Zodiac members, I think they're all pretty cool.
They're pretty good, and they actually are consistent with the LMD. I mean, Scorpio talks about it as well. The LMD Zodiac iteration, who fought the Defenders when Moon Knight was in the Defenders, because I definitely recognise Virgo and Gemini and I believe Taurus is exactly the same, and maybe Ares as well. The goat, the archer, very similar to designs to that of the run in the Defenders as well. So so obviously they're very proud of the designs, whoever designed them, and they use them again.
Yeah, and then I would say the issue 29 cover, the one with Moon Knight, with just Moon Knight on. I think that one's probably the best of all of them.
Actually, I mean, the other ones aren't too much. I do like 25. I mean, just the Wonder Man and Abomination. I mean, in the scheme of things, 25 doesn't really add too much to this whole arc if you treat these 6 issues as an arc. But I thought that was pretty good. No, I'd probably agree with you as well. Yeah, 29 was pretty good art-wise. I thought with issue 30 within it, in addition to the monstrosity that was a composite Avenger, I don't know if you got the same feeling. Page 1 there, Josh. Unfortunately, I don't think Milgrom, we've been lauding him, but I don't think he could draw children properly. They just look like miniature adults, don't they? I mean, like...
I'm looking at it right now, and yeah, you're right. He's maybe like the size of Wonder Man's like biceps or his upper arm. Yeah. That's the size of the size of, it looks really weird.
They're imps. They're the size of newborn babies, and they shouldn't be flicking through pages and laughing and carrying on. It's so scale problems there. Although
the only thing I could say I could defend it is technically they're not real.
That's true. Yeah, absolutely.
That's the only thing I could sort of defend it, because they're just what are they? They're just creations of Wanda. I think.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. That is true. And look, but who's going to tell Wanda and Vision? You don't want to be on the sticky end of that.
Right.
So and also just a little aside. Wonder Man's hair, just friggin'. That's gold. I mean, gold right there.
That's definitely a 1980s mold.
Oh, it is. It's in all its glory. That's really all I've got from art. You've got a couple of any more points there, Josh?
Well, I just said again about the composite Avenger. Mm-hmm. Like I said, when I saw it in story, that I chuckled out loud with the reaction of like the Sligs Supreme Intelligence. I thought that was pretty funny. Yeah. The only thing I have here is that issue 29, Taurus is trying to get away from Moon Knight and the cops, and then Moon Knight appears on a sky cycle, like the same one that Hawkeye uses, and he looks ridiculously stupid.
Yeah, that is.
I think it's the cape. The cape. It's too. It just looks weird.
Yeah, I don't know. The sky cycle to me is always. I've always found that a little weird. But yeah, to see Moon Knight on it just. I prefer him on a rope ladder or something. Or even his mooncopter's a monstrosity around this time, isn't it? It's you can't win.
It's like the shape of like a crescent moon, and then it has like a little like cockpit sticking out of it. It looks really weird.
They really needed to get an object designer or a car, vehicle designer. Rather than leave it to the artists, because around this time there were some shockers. But the Sky Cycle, the only dorky kind of vehicle I kind of like is the Fantastic Car. I think that still is pretty cool, although it is very dorky. Anyway, we've got just finally, I guess, Josh, some references to other runs. So as we mentioned before, Englehart is very much attuned to what else is happening in the Marvel Universe. As I mentioned before, there's a nod to Fist of Khonshu issue 4 with Marlene leaving Mark, so that's consistent. There's also a thing which I didn't pick up at all from Werewolf by Night 32. So Moon Knight actually began in Los Angeles. I didn't realise that. And that actually...
Yeah, I don't remember that. I don't remember them mentioning that in there, but it's been a while since I've read
Yeah,
that, so
me too.
Maybe they did.
But that's pretty cool because obviously the ties he has with West Coast Avengers, and then if you look at the Bendis run as well, that was set in LA, he certainly has ties with the West Coast. So, so I thought that was a pretty nifty note that it actually all started for him in Los Angeles.
Which, like, if we ever do get Moon Knight in some sort of media, I kind of hope they do put it, like, in L.A. instead, or even, like, maybe, like, Chicago, because I think he's originally from Chicago.
Yes.
Like, that way not everybody is in New York, and then you have these questions like, well, why don't they run into each other? It's like, I think Moon Knight has been, like, he has so many ties to L.A. in comic form, I think they can just have him based out there. Yeah. Maybe allude him to being in New York in the past, and they're having him come here or something like that.
I'm absolutely with you. I'd like to see. I tend to lean towards him in Chicago. I'd like to see him in Chicago, but either or, Los Angeles, LA, or Chicago would be good. Over New York for sure, because there's just too many of them in there already. So, so other references, Josh, that you've got listed here.
So pretty much all the ones I have, they're all editor's notes throughout. And actually, one I don't have on the list is actually, there were 2 annuals that are also included in, like, the trade paperback of this.
Oh, okay.
But I figured they weren't really that. Annuals never really tie into the main storyline anyways, so don't really include it. I think it's annual number. I think it's is it 1 or 2? I think it's the second annual of West Coast Avengers.
Okay.
And then I think it's Avengers Annual, like 19. I think I don't have it in front of me.
Okay,
but they do list it. But I think it's like them, like they go to meet up with the East Coast Avengers for a baseball, baseball game between them. Yep. And then something happens.
Yeah,
and not really important. I mean, that could potentially be something you cover on an episode at a later date if you really want to.
Yeah, I mean, rightly as you say, those annuals are pretty much self-contained, aren't they? Because I think they want people to buy them and not have to worry about where it leads to, unless they drop a carrot somewhere and want you to pick up something else.
Yeah, and annuals were actually, I'm only because I just heard somebody else say this yesterday. I'll give them a small shout out since you have before the Epic Marvel podcast.
Oh yeah.
The new episode, they were actually they just did the round robin actually.
Yeah.
And they did the second part, and they talk about all the annuals and stuff. But the annuals, like back in the day, used to be like your Wikipedia. Like they would give you like like character like backgrounds and stuff, or like maps of like the Baxter Building or like Stark Avengers Town or Mansion or like Stark's Mansion, stuff like that. So that's sort of the thing I think that people used to buy annuals for too, is if you want to know some sort of like if you're a real information hog like that, that's a good way to get it. But story-wise, they don't really play that much of a part.
Yeah.
Unless, except for, big ones like Atlantis Attacks, which is a pretty big one.
That's cool. I'd love to find a podcast or, that will cover it all. That was a huge one. That covered all the titles, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. I remember I've got the Daredevil annual for that, but I think that's one of the early introductions to Daredevil for me, but that was a fun little romp, Atlantis. And so, sorry, you've got...
But anyways, with the ones I have on my list for the references to other ones, you have Defenders 46 through 50, which you guys have covered actually way back, and I guess in the earlier days of the show, with Moon Knight's involvement with the Defenders. That's where that's the previous appearance of the Zodiac LMDs. And then they have with Iron Man 35 and Daredevil 73, which had previous appearances of the Zodiac Key and that Brotherhood.
Yes. The realm of the Brotherhood and the whole idea about the Zodiac Key. Yeah. So, very interesting. And as well, those Defenders, 46 to 50 and what we covered before, that goes into a whole lot more about Jake Fury. Because that was one of the things at the time about, having a recount and having a little flashback and in one page or so just recounting what happens. And so that does it as well in Defenders, in those Defenders issues. So anyway, having gone through all that, Josh, really nice appearance by Moon Knight and a bit of an addition to his lore. Let's go on to our moon rating. So, as always, we have our highly convoluted moon rating system, all based on the phases of the moon. And for this, Josh, I'll let you go first. West Coast Avengers, Volume 2, issues 25 to 30. What would you give this out of 10?
I'd probably give it like a waning gibbous, so like 6.5, 7 out of 10. I thought it was, I did enjoy it. Like I said, I think, it wasn't excellent, but it was pretty good. I think like the issue 30 sort of knocked my score down a little bit because I didn't enjoy it that much. I guess I thought it was just a little wonky with how like the pacing and stuff of it, and we're gonna have you fight the robot one at a time, and so I'd say about 7 out of 10. Waning gibbous.
Okay, excellent. I would agree with you wholeheartedly. More of the 7 out of 10, so a bit of a high-end waning gibbous. And this is taking all 6 of the issues as a whole. Look, some issues were a lot stronger than others, but generally, I think I enjoyed a lot of it. None of it really did drag for me at all. The art was great. It was consistent. Some things were ridiculous. Some things were hilarious. But you've got to just take that, for something that was written in the 80s. So, so really enjoyed that. So that's a nice little average of about 7 out of 10 Loonies. As we mentioned, it's readily available. Go check all those issues out. Now, Josh, I think we'll just go to a quick break. I'll throw to a couple of collective members and their shows, and when we come back, let's go through a few bits of Mooney missives, some feedback, and we'll wrap this show up.
I am Connor from the House of L.
And I am Ray from the House of Zod.
We are two of the many survivors of Krypton's destruction, and we have made our home in Australia, and dare I say, have become Australians, for better or worse. But we have also decided to read Superman comics, read Superman books, watch Superman shows, cartoons, movies, basically everything Superman, and from an Australian perspective as well. Whether you're a seasoned fan, like me,
or whether you are coming in fresh, wide-eyed and wanting to learn more like me, then this podcast is for you. Join us for our bi-weekly adventures available on all good podcast catchers.
So just search for Last Sons of Krypton, a Superman podcast. We'll be coming to you from Australia or some cosmic dimension, wherever we are that week.
Up, and away.
Hey there! Do you like comic books? Do you like superhero TV and movies? Well, come on over and check out the Capes and Lunatics podcast. We have such shows as Capes and Lunatics and Super Connectivity, where we cover everything new and current and popular in the world of superheroes. And we also have episode-by-episode reviews of the Marvel Netflix shows and a monthly discussion of everything current on the DC Comics character Nightwing, and a few other surprises all the time. So come join us for the Capes and Lunatics podcast.
Yes, welcome back, Looney listeners. You are listening to Into the Night, a Moon Knight podcast. This is High Fist of Khonshu Ray, and I am with Josh Geronimo Johnson. Josh, how are you going? Are you still with me?
Oh, yeah, I'm still here.
In the 80-degree heat early in the morning for you.
Oh, yes.
So we've just reviewed the trade arc, or the trade or arc review, and we've got a bit of feedback here. Just some people's thoughts on things. So, if anything, please get your thoughts in. We'd love to hear from you. This was from our Facebook page. Josh, we'll just go through maybe one each. this was our Facebook page from Adam Prine, one of our long-time Looney listeners. Oh yes, look at the composite Avenger in all his chonky glory. Yes, Adam, he's very chonky indeed. I'd like to see a figure, a toy figure. Maybe Hasbro can release composite Avenger.
Oh God,
that would be.
You know what? They should do that as the like the Build-A-Figure. Where you buy the Marvel Legends and then you get like a weird. Like get an arm or a leg or something like that. Like that would be funny.
You'll definitely get something weird. Trust me with the composite Avenger. Josh, we got another one from our Facebook group.
All right, so here we got Frank Bennett. He says, never liked Al Milgram's work, just awful, 2 thumbs down.
So, I mean, that's okay. Everyone's obviously, art is very subjective. Thank you, Frank.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Yeah, fair enough. I mean, God, there's so many different sorts of art out there now, isn't there? But to me, Al Milgram's very classic, so, can't go too wrong with that. Another short comment here from Ethan Summerson. I love West Coast Avengers so much. Thank you, Ethan. We do too. It's, I love following. They're one of the first titles that I followed as well. Interesting to know. Maybe you can drop us a line what you think of the latest iteration of the West Coast Avengers by Kelly Thompson. I really enjoyed that too, but I know a lot of fans were potentially up in arms at it being very different from what they thought the West Coast Avengers should be. Next one, Josh here from...
We got Dwayne Fletcher. He says, I have all the ones with Moon Knight on the team. Not a big fan of anyone else on this team. Reminds me of a B-cast movie.
Oh.
You're correct. That's why they're the West Coast Avengers and not on the regular Avengers team.
B. And we do have the C-class, which is the, Great Lakes Avengers. But West Coast, I mean, they've got their certain charm to them. And, the big hitters like Iron Man, Hawkeye adds a bit of credit to them. And finally, we have something from Trevor Phipp II, and it's, oh God, it's like a West Coast super adaptoid fucking kill it with fire. Well, I don't know what would kill it, Trevor. I don't think fire would do it. I think you'd have to give it a pair of concrete shoes and then shoot it off into the sun or something. I don't know. It's a hard thing to kill. But no, thank you, Loonies. Short and sharp, I love it. Please get your feedback in. We'd love to hear it. Love to hear more about, why you didn't like, say, Al Milgram's stuff, or what you love so much about the West Coast Avengers. We're always here to listen, and we love to discuss and to just to give you guys a shout-out. Speaking of shout-outs, we are edging towards the end of our episode, but I just want to give a few spectacle shout-outs. So, as mentioned, Josh, earlier on in this episode, you gave a couple of shout-outs to In Country. That's the NARM podcast. Is that correct?
Yep.
So, rounding off the 100 episodes very shortly. But, look, I'll put a link into them. Definitely worth a listen. We love supporting our fellow Marvel character, Marvel Comics podcasts. And also hosted by Curtis Findlay, the mighty fine gentleman there. Epic Marvel podcast. He does a fantastic job with going through all the Epic collections. I love Epic collections, Josh. I don't know if you get any of them, but I think they're
I only have I have the first Black Panther one.
Ooh.
And from what I've read and from what I told, because they have a Facebook group too with all the Epic collections, and I posted in there, and some people are like, "Oh, that's a rough first one," and it is. I still haven't finished it, because Don McGregor is the writer, and he loves exposition.
Oh no!
And it takes a long time to read.
Jeez.
But I do want to get some other ones in the future. Probably one more recent ones that came out I want to get potentially for if I go through with my podcast thing. But the Sergeant Fury and his Howling Commandos. They just released
I've seen that.
Volume 1 of that. So I'm going to try to pick that one up at some point.
And the thing I like about them is that they're quite substantial. You're looking at about 450 pages of comics, and it's a slice of an era as well. So I believe also, just incidentally, Josh, I know that you mentioned I think I mentioned it at the top of the show. The Epic Collections will be releasing the West Coast Avengers volume, which will include all these issues. So that's pretty cool. And
yeah, I think they announced it like the week after we covered the first one.
Yeah,
the first like the same week, like right after you released it. It's like, oh yeah, we're gonna release the Avengers Lost in Space Time.
Yeah, it's So they're definitely worth getting. But definitely check out the podcast as well. It is top quality. Also, just want to give a little indulgent podcast plugs myself. I co-hosted episode 126 of The Signal of Doom with Dave Finn. That should be out by the end of this weekend, so keep your ears out for that if you want to hear stuff, you want to hear us rant about pop culture. And we review a couple of comics as well, and a trade, which was The Massive, which was that the trade that I mentioned at the top of the show. Also, Dave and I, we managed to get a guest spot in a Predator retrospective on 20th Century Geek. Now, this is available now on all podcast catches. It's part 1, and we had a chat with Scott, the host, and we talked about Predator, Predator 2, and Aliens vs. Predator, the movies, as well as the Dark Horse comics. If ever you're a fan, Josh, do you like Predator at all, or...?
I've never seen one, to be honest.
Josh, wow. How? Oh, go out, please. At least see Predator with Arnie. It is one of the best movies out there. If you want to hear me talk any more about it, check out the podcast. No, seriously, Predator is awesome. Depends if you like your sci-fi sort of stuff. But that's out there. Go check it out if you can. It's a great show as well. Scott talks about anything 20th century pop culture related as well. And finally, I wanted to give a nice shout-out to our good friends over at Inner Demons, a Ghost Rider podcast hosted by Chris Martin and Brian Biggie. Big shout-out to you guys. Episode 43, they have an interview with Howard Mackey. So that is really fun. I think Brian went to... Oh, God, I can't remember. It was a particular comic book convention. He got to speak to Howard Mackey. Got a nice interview with him. Sounds like a really nice guy. Go check it out. But they also review the likes of Marvel Comics Presents Issue 6, Cosmic Ghost Rider Destroys the Universe, Marvel Universe. There's also a Ghost Rider and Cable team-up issue, and they also do a 2006 Ghost Rider Issue 9 review. So, yeah, all very, very highly entertaining podcasts. Go check them out. And that pretty much wraps up our show. Josh, it's been fantastic to having you on. Thank you so much for taking your time.
Oh, yeah, thanks for having me on again.
Yeah, anytime, Josh. Thank you so much for putting it out. Look, Loonies, just so you know, I put it out on the group. Had no idea really what to do for a trade arc. Josh put his hand up. He suggested this, which was a great run, and then I asked Josh, well, do you want to come on the show? So it is that easy, Loonies. You can do it too if you want to come onto the show. Just contact us, and it's all fun.
And we'll actually, I guess, we'll have another one coming up probably in the next month or so.
Yes.
Right?
Oh yeah. Sorry, I don't follow.
We're gonna do. Acts of Vengeance for the Acts of Evil coming up, right?
Yeah. That's got to... Yeah, of course. Yep.
So a bit of a sizzle there.
Oh, man, Acts of Evil. Yeah, I must say. Anyway, well, my thoughts are...
Well, I sort of mentioned this off there, and you can cut it out if you want, but in preparation for Acts of Vengeance, I was just like, what better way to just read the whole thing now? Yeah. So I read like all 60 issues, and let me tell you.
Well done. That is so cool.
Some was really good, some not so much.
Yeah, hit and miss. Yeah, true. But just the concept of it, I think is just fantastic. And it was pretty ambitious. There's a hardcover omnibus I'd love to get of Acts of Vengeance. But anyway, absolutely, Josh. We're gonna put you in the schedule. Big thanks once again. Next phase, we have a full moon, and Loonies, we have our segment of Moon and Stars. Yes, that is our film and TV segment, and we'll have a special guest, Alex Lumen, and one of his other actors from his fan film. It's part 2 of his Moon Knight on screen. He's got a YouTube MU I think it is called YTMCU. And he's a young fella. He does some fan films. This film coming up, which is released now, it involves Moon Knight, Shang-Chi, Iron Fist, and I think Winter Soldier. So I do admire Alex's passion, and it'd be good to have him on the show to talk about his latest film. Finally, Loonies, you can find us on a slew of things. We're on email, itkmoonnight@gmail.com. We have a website, intothenightpodcast.wordpress.com. And as we've mentioned before, we're on Facebook. We have a page, facebook.com/itkmoonnight, as well as a Facebook group. Please join. We've hit over that 1,000 mark. I think we're at 1,020 or something, which I just can't believe. It's just amazing. Facebook.com/group/itkmoonnight. Josh is, you've been one of the OGs, haven't you? Like from the start. It's been.
I think I was part of the pair that got you to 200. I think.
Ah, awesome! That's so cool. That's right there, right near the top. We have a Twitter handle @ITKMoonnight, and we're on Instagram, Tumblr, YouTube. Just search for Into the Night, a Moon Knight podcast. Finally, iTunes ratings. Thanks everyone that sent something in. Please keep them coming. They help us cast a larger net to alert other Moon Knight fans, other loonies out there to potentially listen to us. Or if you have something, that you'd like to suggest or how we can improve the show, we're open to that as well, obviously. So, please get your ratings and reviews in. Finally, we're on all good podcast catches. So, whatever you're listening to now, just imagine another one. We're on that one as well. Apple Podcast, Stitcher, Spotify, SoundCloud. If you are out in the woods somewhere or you're in a cave and you've forgotten your phone, you can find us through other means. So that pretty much wraps our show 108. I'm very happy to have Josh with us, and big thanks once again, Josh. We'll be seeing you very soon then, for the Acts of Evil, Acts of Vengeance.
Yeah, probably in another month or so.
Brilliant.
So if you want to leave a rating in the iTunes, say get that Josh guy out of here because he ruins the episode, go ahead, feel free.
Oh, never. Anyway, Loonies, that's it from us. As always, may Khonshu watch over the denizens of the night. Catch you later.
See you guys.
Moon Knight and affiliated characters, stories and events are properties of Marvel Characters Incorporated. Materials used and discussed within the podcast are intended for critique and review purposes only under the fair dealing concept of the current Copyright Act. The views, information or opinions expressed during the podcast are solely those of the individuals involved and do not necessarily represent those of the copyright owners.